When did the X-Men start to die? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites, and then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be covering Death of X. Now, you see, when the Secret Wars ended and we started with the all-new, all-different Marvel, two big mysteries existed in the new world of Marvel. The Terrigen Cloud was floating around the entire planet of Earth, and any Inhuman that it touched, it would make into an Inhuman. But the mutants? This was a death sentence. It would kill them instantly. We also learned that, apparently, Cyclops had died. We had no idea how that had happened. Today, we're going to cover that story. It begins aboard the Blackbird as the uncanny X-Men fly to Muir Island. They received a transmission from Jamie Madrox that there was a terrible mistake and he needed their help, but the transmission cut off there. Goldballs asks if they're really sure that they should be bringing him along, since this seems a little out of his league, and the Stepford sisters state that they couldn't agree more. But Scott tells them all to play nice. They're approaching the island. Meanwhile, over in Japan, Crystal and her uncanny Inhumans are all preparing for the arrival of the Terrigen Cloud that's about to pass by. Even though most people used to panic at the sight of it, more and more humans are willing to stand there to see if they have Inhuman genes inside of them that will be awoken by this cloud, showing them to have dormant powers. Back at the island, the X-Men get off the Blackbird and Magic points to a weird fog floating around, because something isn't right. In the back, Goldball says that whatever this stuff is, it's starting to make him feel gross. And Scott notices some blood on the ground, and he tells everyone to be ready for anything. Soon the group manages to locate Jamie's research facility, but Emma says that she can only sense a few minds other than their own inside. Scott begins to cough, stating that Jamie staffed this place with his multiple cells and a skeleton crew. But as he talks, he starts to cough more. Emma asks if he's okay, and he tells her that he's fine. They should keep moving. As they walk in, Magic tells everyone that they need to figure out what they're dealing with before someone else gets hurt. But Bobby says that he thinks that it might be too late for that, and then everyone looks to see a dead body covered in boils. Scott examines the body and says that they need to find out what did this, and just as he finishes his sentence, the Stepford sisters state that someone is out there. The Stepford sisters lead the group back outside, where they say they have found someone, and as they step over the hill, they look out to see many bodies scattered throughout the mist, and then Jamie pulling himself up. Scott runs over and Jamie tells him that it's the Terrigen Mist. They figured it out too late. The Terrigen Mist did this. Scott tries to ask how, but Jamie is already dead. Emma says that if the Mist really did this, then they've all been exposed. They need to stop it. Magic asks how. Everyone's dead, but Scott tells her that Emma's right. So go get everyone back inside of the Blackbird. Him and Emma will take care of it. A short while later, Scott begins transferring all of Jamie's data over to Hank McCoy. Scott tells him that they need to be 100% sure before they do anything. But as he continues to speak, Scott begins to faint. A short while later, Magic returns to Emma and asks where's Scott. From the entrance of the facility, Scott walks out and says, "I'm okay." But she tells him that he doesn't look fine. And Scott tells her again, "I am fine. I got the data over to Hank." With that, he was able to analyze it, and the Terrigen Mist is toxic to mutants, which means the Inhumans lied to them. As far as he's concerned, the Inhumans have killed everyone here, and if they don't do something now, this will only be the beginning. He will not stand by and accept this. He will do whatever it takes, even if it means war. They are mutants, and they will protect their own. Hank begins to continue his research at the New Attilian Hospital, while Storm explains their current findings to Medusa. Medusa says that the Terrigen Mist should have no ill side effect towards mutants. Storm tells her Hank suspects that something must have changed when the Terrigen was released into the atmosphere. She goes on stating that they'll do whatever they can to help Hank with his research, and then she makes a call to Crystal aboard the RIV aerial ship. Crystal asks why she's contacting her through the emergency channel, and Medusa asks where are the Terrigen Clouds heading. After bringing up a map, Crystal says that one cloud is out to sea, and it won't make land contact for about a week. The other is heading for Madrid. Medusa tells her to evacuate anyone there who has an X gene. She doesn't know how, just make sure that she does it. Storm says that with Forge's help, they should be able to get a mobile X gene locator, so she'll be able to take a team out there right away. But before leaving, Medusa asks who else knows about this. Storm says a few of them, including Cyclops, which is why she came here. She wanted to see the look in her eye and gauge her reaction, to see if it was purposeful. Medusa says that that is ludicrous. They have no quarrel with mutant kind. And Storm tells her, "I know that now, but I won't be the only mutant that you need to convince." After Storm leaves, Medusa sits back down stating that they need to be very, very careful now. If they get even one powerful mutant thinking that this is an attack, and as she continues to talk to Black Bolt, suddenly a vision appears in everyone's mind. That vision is Scott, and he's speaking to the minds of every person on Earth. He tells the world that the Inhumans told everyone that this substance that they poured into the atmosphere would only affect them. However, they lied. They learned too late that the Terrigen mist is lethal, as one of their own, Jamie Madrox, died a painful death after being exposed to it. The Terrigen mist is toxic to mutants, and for too long the world has feared and hated mutants, but they, the X-Men, will save them. As soon as the broadcast ended, the Stepford sisters tell Emma that they saw, but Emma stops them, stating she knows, and she does not wish to talk about it. Magic tries to ask what are they supposed to do now. They should all discuss this, but Scott and Emma head back into the facility telling everyone, not now. Over in Madrid, Storm assists Crystal in diverting the Terrigen Cloud away from the city. She tells Crystal and Iso thank you, and that she can see that they were trying to save the mutants, and it's not something that they're going to forget. Iso says, are they really done though? The city is kind of panicked due to Scott's message. And back over on the island, more and more bodies of mutants exposed to the Terrigen arrive. However, as the hours pass, Scott and Emma remain inside of the research facility. Emma says that Hank and Storm keep trying to contact them. What is she supposed to say? They're on a path now and there's no turning back. Soon, Magic walks in stating that they need to talk, and Scott says, you're right. It's time to tell you everything. He tells them that him and Emma will not sit by and let the Inhumans destroy them. Powerful mutants are joining their cause, so they have a choice, because the time to act is now. Over in Madrid, Crystal and the Inhumans all attempt to calm down the townspeople, but as the panic spreads, Crystal tells their newest Inhuman, Daisuke, to use his new power to put everyone to sleep. He asks if she's sure, and Crystal tells him yes, she'll take responsibility for it, so do it. And as he begins to release his power, light begins to shine, and soon the light begins hitting all of the Inhumans, people, and mutants. Meanwhile, back on the island, Emma reaches out to see if a certain powerful mutant will join their cause. And Magneto tells her, of course, I would be happy to. Shortly after Magneto agrees to help, Emma begins showing footage of Madrid with all of the mutants knocked out. And among those images is Crystal, who seems to be smiling. Emma goes on to state that they need Magneto's help. They have a unique opportunity while the Inhumans' primary mobile strike team is in Madrid. All he needs to do is contain them, and then her and Scott will do the rest. Magneto tells her, good, I'll see you in Spain. As the comms go silent, Emma tells Scott that she thinks Magneto will help them, but she thinks that he knows everything. Back in Madrid, Storm begins to wake up and see all of the mutants lying around in the street. She rushes over to Angel and he begins to wake up along with the others. But as they wake up, Bobby notices that everyone seems to have been put to sleep, except for them, pointing at the Inhumans. Back up top, Crystal tells everyone that the mutants are waking up and they need to get down there and explain their actions before they start jumping to the wrong conclusions. But Angel's voice tells them, that's alright, we'll come up here. Crystal tells them that it's good that they're awake, they need to work together, and Storm stops her, stating that they were helping, and right now, Crystal needs to explain. Bobby starts yelling at Flint, stating that it was probably him who put them to sleep, and then he flicks a piece of ice at him. Flint leans over, and Bobby tells him that he doesn't like it when people use their powers without permission, huh? Flint tells him not really, but he'll get over it, and then the ground begins to shake. Crystal shouts for everyone to stand down, and Daisuke tells him not to worry, he'll just put everyone to sleep again, but Crystal tells him not to, and then Magic appears, hitting him in the back of the head. As his body falls limp, she tells him to come along, and the two disappear. Storm asks what the hell was that, and Angel says that he doesn't know, and then suddenly a giant steel beam falls down, and then several more. Storm shouts for everyone to get to cover, and as shadows appear overhead, Bobby tells everyone that there really isn't any cover from this. Everyone looks up to see Magneto as he tells everyone, I'm sorry, but none of you are going anywhere. More beams begin to fall around everyone, forming a wall, and Crystal tells him that he's crossed the line. Magneto looks at her and says, I know I have. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Madrid, the Terrigen Cloud begins to get closer and closer to the city. Up on a cliff, the light begins to appear and Magic teleports Scott and the rest of them to that location. As Scott begins to make his preparations, he tells Alchemy that he's sorry he didn't get a chance to talk. Things have been rather hectic. Alchemy tells him it's not a problem. He just really can't believe he's here. He's never really been much of a hero. Scott tells him that what they're about to do won't be easy, but they can't do it without him. Years ago, the X-Men saved him and his mother. He doesn't owe them anything. It's just what they do and what they want to keep doing. Alchemy then says, of all the transparent ploys, and Scott stops him, telling him, I want to be transparent. I want you to make this choice of your own free will. So, do you want to be an X-Man? After a few moments, Alchemy says yeah, and Scott tells him good, it's time to get to work. As the group looks at the oncoming clouds, Sunfire asks if he's ready, and Alchemy says that he thinks so. Sunfire grabs a hold of him, and the two of them go flying up through the air towards the cloud. But just as they get into position, a blast of energy knocks the two of them out of the sky. Across the field, Scott sees Medusa and the other Inhumans stepping out of a portal. Scott shouts to the Stepford sisters to keep the Royals busy, and Emma runs down to check on Alchemy and Sunfire and tells them that they have to get back in the air. Alchemy says, I just fell from the sky for God's sake. I think I might have a broken arm. Emma tells him that she'll break the other one if he doesn't get, but then Scott grabs a hold of her, telling her to stop. He kneels down and tells him that he knows that this hurts and he's sorry, but he needs him to push through this. This whole thing is bigger than him. Alchemy looks at him and tells him, help me up. As Sunfire and Alchemy fly back into the air, Medusa spots them, but before they can react, one of Magic's portals appears behind them. Magic charges in, stabbing Black Bolt in the back, and the rest of them open fire on her. As the smoke clears, the Stepford sisters smile as their plan worked, and the Inhumans just opened fire on Black Bolts. Up in the sky, Alchemy gets to work on the cloud as Medusa teleports to the Stepford sisters. Medusa wraps the girls up, and as they look up, Alchemy is finishing changing the Terrigen Cloud. Scott tells him that there's their conquering hero, and as Sunfire sets him down, he tells him that he thinks the boy may be sick. Scott kneels down with them, telling him, it'll be all right. You were a good soldier. Through Alchemy's final words, he says, I'm not a soldier. Emma says that they're coming, and Scott tells everyone to wait there. He's gonna save the X-Men. And as red rain begins to pour down onto the battlefield from Alchemy's successful attempt to change the Terrigen mist into something not toxic to mutants, Scott shouts to the Inhumans. Medusa steps out of a portal asking, what have you done? And Scott tells him that he changed the composition of the cloud to something that isn't toxic. But before she can ask, he says, don't worry, it's harmless to Inhumans. Medusa demands to know why. You've just made the Inhumans enemies with you forever. And Scott says, we already were when you poisoned the planet. We both have a story for what is right and what is wrong, but what matters is who is believed. As Scott goes on, Magic says that they need to go help him, but Emma tells her no. Scott has to do this. Scott then says, I've been a lot of things, a student, a warrior, a teacher, even a killer. But now, with everything tainted, I'm not even a person. All that's left of me is an idea. His eyes begin to light up, and he tells Medusa, the good thing about ideas is that ideas never die. And before Scott can fire off a blast, Black Bolt yells, tearing Scott's body apart. A week passes, and Storm gives the eulogy at Scott Summers' funeral. But off in the distance, Emma stands with Alex Summers, and he asks, what kind of game are you playing? Emma says that Storm can sure talk, and Alex tells her that it's because of Storm that they were able to negotiate a truce. Emma then says, everything is done now. The Inhumans will leave us alone, and we'll leave the Inhumans alone. And Hank continues working to find a solution. But the only man that she ever wanted to care about her is still dead. Alex asks, is he really? Because I know he's sure as hell not in that coffin. The others told me how Scott died, suicide by Black Bolt, but Scott would never go out that way. Emma then walks off telling him to come. She supposes that he deserves to know. After a short walk, Alex stands over the body of Scott, and Alex asks, how? And Emma says that when they first came to investigate the Terrigen Cloud, when they entered the facility and Scott collapsed, it was then. He died then. Alex begins to piece together what happened. Everything that was done was all a lie. The broadcast, the talks with Alchemy, the death by Black Bolt. Emma goes on stating, don't you see? Scott isn't dead. When Scott died in my arms, I couldn't let him die because of some disease. He was born to lead, and I've turned him into an idea. And thank God for that, because his work isn't done. There's still a second Cloud out there, because I made him into an idea, and ideas never die. This started an uneasy truce between the Inhumans and the X-Men. But now we're entering a day and age where that truce has ended. And if you want to know where this is going, then go pick up Inhumans vs. X-Men, the newest series that has begun. Because there's no truce anymore. If you guys enjoy your comic books read back to you dramatically, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel, give this video a like if you want more X-Men, and please follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian.